Greetings, everyone. I am thrilled to guide you through the thought-provoking landscape presented in Practical Ethics: Equality for Animals by the esteemed philosopher Peter Singer. In this exploration, we will delve into Singer's compelling arguments and contemplate the ethical implications he raises, particularly regarding our treatment of animals. The journey we're about to embark on challenges us to evaluate our moral compass, extending considerations of equality and ethics beyond the human sphere. I am Rocky Castañeros. Together with Francis Hugo and Aaron Gamad, we aim to provide a thorough understanding of Singer's key concepts, sparking introspection and fostering a deeper appreciation for the ethical dimensions of our relationship with animals. Peter Singer. Peter Singer is an Australian philosopher and bioethicist, renowned for applied ethics and moral philosophy. His publications are Practical Ethics, published in 1978, which was significant and influential work on ethics. His central theme revolves around utilitarianism. Singer advocates for utilitarian ethics, focusing on maximizing well-being and minimizing suffering. Scope of ethical issues explores various ethical topics, includes discussions on animal rights, abortion, euthanasia, and global poverty. Impact and relevance. Practical ethics sparks debates on crucial ethical dilemmas, continues as a reference for scholars and those interested in moral philosophy. Equality for animals. Number one, the foundational idea of equality for animals challenges prioritization of animal interest. It advocates for recognizing animals' intrinsic value and rights. Secondly, philosophical perspectives draws on utilitarianism, deontology, and right-based ethics, extends moral consideration to animals based on sentience and capacity to suffer. Lastly, animal rights and welfare. It focuses on ethical treatments of animals. It also emphasizes preventing unnecessary suffering and advocates legal reforms for stronger protection. Now let us proceed to racism and speciesism. Ethics and reciprocity. Intersectionality of oppression. Recognize commonality between racism and speciesism. Both involve unjustified hierarchy based on arbitrary characteristics. Historical roots. Explore intersections in colonialism and scientific racism. Examine historical instances where racism and speciesism have intersected. Language and dehumanization. Examine language's role in marginalizing racial and non-human animal groups. Highlight parallels in the use of derogatory terms and stereotypes. Ethical consideration. Discuss the ethical implications of treating groups as inherently superior or inferior based on race and species. Global perspectives. Discuss how racism and speciesism manifest globally and in various cultural contexts. Consider the impact of globalization on both forms of discrimination. Calls for intersectional activism. Encourage an intersectional approach addressing both racism and speciesism. Emphasize the importance of solidarity among different social justice movements.
Speciesism in practice. Now we delve into the intricacies of speciesism in modern societies, particularly focusing on the ethical considerations surrounding animals' treatment as food and their use in experimentation. These practices, deeply ingrained in our history, pose significant ethical challenges regarding our treatment of animals. Animals as food. Consumption of animal products is a fundamental aspect of modern urbanist societies. This practice, the use of animals for food, is deeply rooted in our history and has a profound influence on our ethical perspective regarding animals. Ethical considerations. Our exploration commences with the ethical debate surrounding animal use for food. Central to this discourse is the fundamental question of whether animals possess intrinsic value and rights. While circumstances such as the Inuit community's reliance on animals for survival strengthen the argument for animal use, in most industrialized societies with abundant food alternatives, ethical justifications become more tenuous. It's worth noting that animal products are not necessary for good health or longevity, and a well-planned vegan diet can suffice highlighting health and environmental implications. Animal consumption, often unnecessary for optimal health, emerges as an inefficient food production method. The practice directs substantial grain resources towards animal consumption, significantly diminishing their nutritional value and exacerbating global warming, surpassing the environmental impact of the entire transport sector. Balancing interests. This ethical dilemma revolves around balancing human interests against animal welfare. The principle of equal consideration of interests suggests that major human interests should not supersede animal welfare. In the case against using animals for food, the argument is strongest when animals lead miserable lives to reduce production costs. Modern forms of intensive farming treat animals as objects, confining them in cramped, unsuitable conditions. Economic competition forces meat producers to adopt practices that prioritize profitability over animal welfare. As one authority on the subject noted, cruelty is acknowledged only when profitability ceases. As a response, there's a resounding call for change. Discontinuing inhumane practices becomes imperative. Consumer choices play a significant role in encouraging or opposing these practices. Thus, some recommendations include avoiding products from factory farms, seeking cage-free or free-range labeling, and contemplating the suffering caused by prevalent animal farming practices like castration, separation, transportation, and slaughter. Alternatives and conclusion. Exploring alternatives, we stress the significance of reducing meat, eggs, and dairy consumption to address ethical concerns. Importantly, it is emphasized that purchasing products from cruel animal production perpetuates unethical practices, contradicting the principle of equal consideration of interest. It also recognizes the challenges urban dwellers face in understanding the treatment of the animals they consume. It suggests alignment with a vegan lifestyle, although upcoming sections will address objections to this ethical conclusion. Experimenting on animals. The practice of experimenting on animals serves as a striking illustration of speciesism, where differential treatment based on species is evident. This delves into the ethical dilemmas associated with animal experimentation and the extent to which it conforms to the principle of equal consideration of interest that transcends the boundaries of species. The ethical dilemma surrounding the similarities between species. Experimenters often rationalize animal experiments by citing their contributions to understanding human behavior. However, this raises poignant questions about animal sentience, particularly in acknowledging stress responses in animals. Myth of medical purposes. Challenging a common belief, not all animal experiments serve essential needs. Instances such as the LD50 test persist, notably in the testing of products like Botox or cosmetic, draw ethical condemnation. Notably, experiments subjecting mice to slow suffocation for cosmetic testing lack ethical justifiability. University experiments. Examining university-based experiments, we uncover the severe psychological trauma resulting from H.F. Harlow's studies on maternal deprivation and isolation in monkeys. These experiments cast doubts on the balance between benefits to humans and certain losses experienced by other species, illustrating a lack of equal consideration for all beings' interests. Hypothetical scenarios and speciesism. Contemplating a hypothetical scenario of sacrificing one animal to save thousands raises ethical queries. In response, a counter-hypothetical question emerges. Would experimenters use severely brain-damaged orphaned humans if it were the only way to save thousands? This reveals a bias favoring one own species in animal experimentation, lacking morally relevant distinctions between severely brain-damaged humans and non-human animals used in experiments. Questioning institutional practices. Scrutinizing current institutional practices in animal research, we find gaps in meeting the principle of equal consideration of interest. While some potential justifications for occasional animal experiments are discussed, conditional on benefits outweighing suffering, proposals advocate shifting research funds toward humane clinical research methods without causing animal suffering. Other forms of speciesism. In our exploration of speciesism, we primarily concentrated on the domains of food and research, where systematic speciesism prevails. However, it's crucial to recognize that speciesism is not limited to these areas alone. There are several other sectors that give rise to similar ethical questions, encompassing practices such as the fur trade, various forms of hunting, circuses, rodeos, zoos, and the pet industry. Wide-ranging implications. The principle of equal consideration of interest reverberates through these varied domains, mirroring the ethical intricacies observed in food and research. It prompts profound philosophical questions, urging us to examine our treatment of animals across these sectors, requiring a consensuous application of ethical principles. Ethical application. As consensuous individuals, it becomes our responsibility to navigate these intricate ethical landscapes. The consistent application of ethical principles, especially upholding the principle of equal consideration of interest, irrespective of species boundaries, stands paramount in navigating the moral complexities ingrained within these sectors. Some objections. The author keenly acknowledges the substantial evolution witnessed within the animal liberation and rights movement since its inception. They credit the tireless efforts of countless animal activists for effectuating a notable shift in public consciousness regarding animal abuse. This movement has not only raised awareness but has also yielded tangible benefits for animals across various spheres. Despite the increasing traction and acceptance of principles advocating for equal consideration of animal interests, the author candidly recognizes the persistence of objections to these fundamental ideas. They concede that despite the strides made, certain objections linger, requiring attention and resolution. Notably, the author pledges to confront and provide responses to these significant objections in the conclusive section of this chapter. Their commitment stands firm in elucidating and possibly mitigating the concerns raised, aiming to offer a comprehensive perspective on the remaining challenges within the animal rights discourse. Other forms of speciesism. In our exploration of speciesism, we primarily concentrated on the domains of food and research, where systematic speciesism prevails. However, it's crucial to recognize that speciesism is not limited to these areas alone. There are several other sectors that give rise to similar ethical questions, encompassing practices such as the fur trade, various forms of hunting, circuses, rodeos, zoos, and the pet industry. Wide-ranging implications. The principle of equal consideration of interest reverberates through these varied domains, mirroring the ethical intricacies observed in food and research. It prompts profound philosophical questions, urging us to examine our treatment of animals across these sectors, requiring a consensuous application of ethical principles. Ethical application. As consensuous individuals, it becomes our responsibility to navigate these intricate ethical landscapes. The consistent application of ethical principles, especially upholding the principle of equal consideration of interest, irrespective of species boundaries, stands paramount in navigating the moral complexities ingrained within these sectors.
How do we know that animals feel pain? Behavioral evidence. Like humans, animals cannot verbally communicate their pain, but their behavior is a crucial indicator. Singer draws parallels between the behavior of a child in pain and that of animals, emphasizing observable actions such as crying, expressing discomfort, and attending to the affected area. Evolutionary similarities. Here argues that the fundamental similarities in the nervous system of vertebrates, particularly birds and mammals, support the belief that animals can feel pain. The shared evolutionary history suggests a common capacity for experiencing pain, as specific neural structures responsible for pain perceptions are ancient and common to all higher animals. Invertebrates and consciousness. While the nervous systems of invertebrates differ from vertebrates, Singer notes evidence suggesting pain perceptions in some instances, such as crabs and prawns responding to stimuli, acknowledges the complexity of consciousness in some invertebrates, citing the example of the octopus' problem-solving abilities, which may imply a form of consciousness. Contrast with plants. Singer highlights the absence of grounds for attributing pain to plants. Behavior suggestive of pain is lacking, and the absence of a centrally organized nervous system distinguishes plants from animals in terms of their capacity for experiencing pain. Animals eat each other, so why shouldn't we eat them? Based from Franklin's perspective, Franklin's temporary vegetarianism ended when he observed a fish containing a smaller fish being prepared for cooking. His acceptance of the objection was influenced by the appealing aroma of the cooking fish, revealing the influence of personal desire on ethical reasoning. Obvious rebuttals. Singer identifies clear counterarguments to Franklin's objection, emphasizing that many animals kill for survival, while humans do not face a similar necessity to consume animal flesh. It challenges the inconsistency of using animal behavior to label it as beastly and as a moral guide depending on convenience. Lack of moral agency on animals asserts that animals lack the capacity for moral reflection and consideration of dietary alternatives, argues against holding animals morally responsible for their actions, and emphasizes the human responsibility to evaluate dietary choices ethically. Misinterpretations of natural law addresses the misconception that the natural law as observed in the animal kingdom justifies humans preying on animals, highlights the error in assuming that modern mass production farming aligns with a natural evolutionary process, emphasizing the distinction between hunting for survival and current agricultural practices. Challenging the appeal to nature seeks the fallacy of assuming what is natural is inherently morally right. It uses the example of reproduction to illustrate that natural processes do not necessarily equate to ethical norms, stressing the importance of improving upon natural ways for ethical consideration.
So now let us talk about ethics and reciprocity. At its core, the contract concept of ethics suggests that ethical behavior emerges from an implicit agreement not to harm each other, rooted in mutual self interest. Let's explore how this viewpoint changes our understanding of morality. So, let us focus first on the contract view of ethics. Here, morality originates from mutual self interest, where individuals act ethically to protect themselves from harm. It emphasizes the reciprocal nature of ethical behavior, a fundamental aspect that underlies our societal understanding of what is right and what is wrong. So, as with any other perspective, the contract view faces criticisms, and one significant concern would be the exclusion of non human animals based on their perceived incapacity for reciprocity, and this viewpoint has justified the mistreatment of animals. Moreover, it struggles to address the moral standing of those who cannot reciprocate ethical behavior, such as infants, cognitively challenged adults, and future generations. And to add further, the universalizability of this view raises questions about considerations beyond our immediate circle of care. To address these concerns, a more inclusive approach emerges: the universalist approach. Instead of solely relying on reciprocity, we consider universalizability. And this means extending ethical considerations to all beings capable of experiencing sorrow or well being, respective of their ability to reciprocate. It broadens our ethical perspective and challenges the limitations of the contract view. So, let us also talk about the historical perspective on humans and animals, the differences between humans and animals. So, it was once thought to be fundamentally separate, and Darwin's revelations challenged this assumption. Attempts to distinguish based on tool use, language, or self-awareness have proven futile, and this challenges the idea that self-aware beings are inherently more valuable than non-self-aware ones. The principle of equal consideration of interest should be applied to all beings capable of suffering. So now we explore the concept of speciesism, the view that species membership is morally significant. Advocates often employ the slippery slope argument, warning against treating intellectually disabled humans and animals equally. However, challenges to this argument highlight potential positive links between how we treat animals and humans, emphasizing the importance of animal welfare without diminishing human status. So, all in all, we can conclude that we have examined Peter Singer's argument for extending the principle of equality to non human animals. The core idea is equal consideration of interests, challenging the prevailing prejudice against taking animal interests seriously by questioning species identity and advocating for a consistent application of ethical principles across species. We can contribute to a more compassionate and just world. So, considerations for animal farming practices, animal experimentation, and a shift in dietary habits can also invite us to reflect on our choices and their ethical implications. So, thank you all for your attention, and this will be the end of our presentation.